I do believe that my current mission is to help empower people to make decisions and create actions that are fully self-expressed. I think most of us are walking around totally terrified of expressing our real opinion, of expressing what we want for ourselves, of taking responsibility for that, of exposing ourselves to the risk of what it is we actually want for ourselves. All of these, it's big and it's scary and we're attached. And there's not a lot of people out there who are really like self-permission led.
Welcome to Tuesday Chats. It's been a hot minute, but I'm excited to be back here again. For those of you who have been following the Tuesday Chats journey, you'll know that this is a half hour or so conversation where we get to talk about all things life and business and why we do what we do and the dreams and where we're headed. So today I am joined by Georgia Rickard. So Georgia and I got to meet each other probably a couple of years ago now, I would think. I think that was at a big room in Brisbane, and have just had the most amazing experience together as a part of business school in Thailand. But I'll let Georgia share some more about that. But Georgia, could you please share who you are and what you do with our group?
Yeah, great question. And thank you so much for having me. And I've been wondering how I'm going to answer this because I started my career in media. I wore every hat under the sun. I was a magazine editor, a TV presenter, I had radio segments. I've written a book. I was just a slashy, a creative slashy. And then I started a couple of businesses in coaching and education, all around helping people how to build and monetize their influence. And then I started an agency as well, which I still have today. We Are George. We have clients like Tourism Australia and Accor Hotels, lots of kind of hospitality and tourism brands. We help them tell stories. And I also have a private community for media, which helps media and personal brands tell their stories too. And so the business that I'm just about to roll out is around helping people build and monetize their personal brands in a lucrative fashion. So that's me. How'd I do?
That's cool. I love that. I haven't heard the term slashy before, but I'm also not from the media space. So what does that actually mean?
It means it comes from Zoolander. I'm a
Okay,
model slash actor, or I'm an actor slash model.
I get
There's
it.
a line in there.
Right.
And so if you're a slashy, you're just a multi-purpose creative or person who wears lots of different hats.
Multi-interested, multi-talented, multi-everything. That's amazing.
You got it.
So how did you get into that space? What is it that got you started in that kind of media space to begin with?
Such an interesting question. And I think trying to uncover your purpose and work out what it is that you want to do with your life I think it's just something that we struggle with at various seasons, years. And the only kind of conclusion that I've been able to draw about why I got into the space that I did, and always that's helped me navigate, is if I think about the inherent preferences and likes and dislikes that I was born with, it seems to me that is actually part of like a genetic blueprint or a spiritual blueprint, depending on which way you lean, which is kind of part of your predetermined, the hints or the breadcrumbs that show you what you love and where you are supposed to go. And I always had this niggle, this kind of breadcrumb to have a voice and to be somebody who told stories and to use that to create impact and action. And I know some people are really good with building things with their hands. That's not me. I trade in ideas and I love ideas and exploring them and sharing them and communicating. And so it was probably always just a foregone conclusion that I would end up in media. And I think as well, back in line with the breadcrumbs, when you are going in a direction that you are meant to go, it typically, you get these yeses, right? You get doors opening, you get signs. And I started my career at 22. I cold called the editor of Cosmo, and that was my very first gig, was writing for them. And then 9 months later, I was in the editor's chair at a national magazine. And then 2 weeks after that, I was on Sunrise. And then the next day I was on Kerry Ann. And that was like, I had this incredible, very young, but quick roller coaster and upward trajectory in media. And yeah, I think that was fine.
That's so cool. I love that. And isn't it fascinating that when we stop and then look back, like all those things that were happening, my assumption is that when you got into that role, like the whole getting under Cosmo, into the editor, onto those national TV programs, that would have been a hell of a ride, right? Which, if that had been me, I'd be like like a blubbering mess of nerves, right? Because of the whole that spotlight. But it would be such a change if you'd gone from being someone who's essentially like almost hidden to that. Like it's a big shift forwards in the Australian space, which was what did you if you look back now, I mean, right now, you look back, you can see why it's perfect. But was it stressful at the time? How did you cope with that?
I think probably like you now, right? I'm a business owner, and you get to a point where you just realize, I think pretty quickly when you're a business owner, A, kind of there are no rules except the ones that you make up for yourself. And B, your impact is completely determined by the choices that you make each day and how you lead yourself. And I think it's quite, when you're young and you don't have predetermined ideas about what the rules are, I think that's what beginner's luck is, right? You just step forward and expect. You don't think about the implications or the barriers. You just like, oh yeah, I can do that. And of course I was a blubbering mess, right? I was terrified on national TV. But I also just said to myself, there are no rules and I'm going to go for it. And in some ways, like I miss the pluckiness of that young girl who had no preconceived ideas or the weight of the expectations of people around her or their limitations, because I think that really does become a big stymie of our growth in the mid-season of our careers. And it's almost like that's our job, is to keep casting those off. Just stay true.
100%. 100%. Because I know as a 22-year-old, I'd just come back I'd finished my degree, went to the US for a year, went to the US to work in a ski area, spent 6 months on the road afterwards in a combi van that was a year older than I am, a combi camper. I had the best time. But I came back from that year of traveling around North America and was just bulletproof. I felt like I was bulletproof. And then met my husband, blah, 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 made a whole heap of life changes, spent 15 years essentially raising our children and pushing away career opportunities because I wanted to be the present parent at home with our kids. And then stepping back into the workspace, holy smokes, the ways that I started my current business in 2018. It's now 2025. And I feel like I'm only just getting back to the confidence level of the 22-year-old now at 50.
I think that's about right, though.
It's interesting because there's so much time where we then, like I look back at my history and I've spent so much time second guessing myself. And therefore, if I look back, I have underperformed in terms of against what my capacity actually was.
Tony Robbins actually talks a lot about the seasons of life that we have. And he says that when it's from 0 to 22 is spring.
Yeah.
Everything's gorgeous and blooming and it's easy. Growth is easy. You're learning, you're a sponge. Like just things are happening. There's potential and possibility. And then he says the hardest season of your life is the next 22 years. So 22 to 42, because it's summer. It's hot. There's pressure. Things are dying. Like things aren't getting enough water. It's scratchy. The resources are less. And there's a huge shift in where you were from in spring, where everything was easy, to this is hard and I have to make it work. And then autumn is, of course, where you reap what you've put down. And of course, if you're fortunate, you've done the right things in summer, you're bearing the fruits of your labor. But so I think when I heard that, I remember feeling, just as you've named here, so validated, because it is such a hard season. You do end up having a lot of, all of us do. Life's hard. It just is. That's the nature of it. It's emotional and we all have challenges. It's beautiful and wonderful and all those things too. But the struggle is what makes it beautiful.
Yeah. So I think, okay, I don't like the term life is hard. I get where you're coming from. I think it's a challenge and it's not a struggle. So I
Yes.
feel hard and struggle as being disempowering language, whereas challenge is like, let me at it. But I hear you. Like it's
Life is hard.
definitely, and I grew up in a family where my brothers and my dad knew exactly what they wanted to do from like the day they drew breath, right? They're cattle breeders. That's if they're not playing with cows and something else, or like all that, that's what they live for, right? And so it's the cornerstone of their life. I was 42 before I worked out what I want to be with when I grow up. And like it was, I loved that life. And I got so much value out of that. But I did so many different things. And I then at 42, I had this incredibly cheesy light bulb moment that there's a reason why these cliches are there. I completely experienced one of those. And I've been doing that ever since. But it's conversations like this, the coaching that I do, all that other stuff. That's what drives me. So I'm really fascinated that because I understand that concept, but I hadn't heard the terminology in the way that Tony Robbins explains it. And to know that it's 22 to 42 is summer, and 42 is when I had my light bulb moment. And now, yeah, that's really interesting. It's very cool. So,
So what has shifted for you from your light bulb moment? Can I ask that? I know this
yeah,
is a
of course you can
podcast
ask.
about I'm the guest, but
Yeah, it's a chat. It's called Tuesday Chats. Of course you're allowed to ask questions. uh, Yes, please ask as many questions as you like. So, what's changed? Everything. Absolutely everything. I started my business. I started 10,000 Dreams, which is now morphing into another business called Margella Advisory, but it's still that whole core of my driver is helping people to understand their why. What is it that you're living? So many of us end up living a life by default, right? We get into a job, you get out of school, and the first thing you want to do is either you get into uni or you get into a job, or sometimes you do both. But often it's like, what's the first thing that comes across my desk that will give me an income as opposed to what I really want to do? And that's fine. We've got to keep a roof over our heads. So many people stay there though and don't actually change it and just they're like the dog that's lying on the nail, right? That just doesn't move. It'll sit there and howl, but won't change anything. And I hate seeing that. So many people who I watch in our community, oh, it's Wednesday, so all these hump day messages start popping up, or it's TGIF. I grew up in a family where every day was like, I remember having conversations with my dad. So, dad passed away a little over 18 months ago, and his whole life got to do exactly what he loved. And I remember him saying to me in the last probably 5 or so years of his life that he never had a day where he got out of bed and didn't look forward to his day. Not once in his whole life. Now, he got to live his dreams the whole time. He grew up in a family where my grandparents and great grandparents had already bought land and were breeding cattle, and he grew into that business as a kid and got to run that business his whole life. And he didn't understand what it's like for people who get into that kind of default mode and stay there because he'd never experienced it. And I had that light bulb, like I said, where I was living in a little, not a necessarily completely default mode, but there were certainly some things in my world that I was accepting that were substandard and I hadn't done enough about changing them. And then suddenly I got that light bulb moment, and then I understood what it's like to be pulled towards my goals, like my dad and my brothers were or have been their whole lives. And it's a magical space to live in. And that's what I want to help other people to discover. And so in the journey of doing that, like there's been a massive level. I've been on a personal growth journey since I was 15 years old at boarding school, and popped my head up and realized that I didn't really have any friends and connection with the other people. So I'm like, they've all got friends. I'll go start on pulling self-help books out of the library, and have been on some kind of self-development journey ever since. And so cause people still to this day talk about me being like loud and overpowering, obnoxious, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get that. I'm the mellow one in my family. I'm from a really strong family of strong personalities. And I love that because they've also been able to create really phenomenal lives for themselves in different ways. But it's that whole drive, like, I don't care what you do, but love your life. And if you don't love your life, what is it that you don't love? Take the time to identify that. And then how can we make more of that come into your world? Whether that's about, usually sometimes it's only the really small changes. I had a client who was like, she and her husband had set themselves up really beautifully financially. And she had this thing where she really wanted to take her family to the Great Wall of China, was one of the things that was on her like long-term vision board kind of stuff. And she also really wanted to foster kids, and she hadn't because of the demands of her career. And also they had three kids, and two of them needed a lot of support because they were on the spectrum. Anyway, long story short, we're like, did this big whole assessment of her life. What do you want? What do you don't want? What have you got? And what do you want to include? And suddenly she realized that because of where she was at with her career, she could now actually get into what she ended up doing was she got into this specialized system of fostering. And as we know, foster carers in Australia get paid for their time and effort. Their family didn't need that income because they had set up other financial systems that gave themselves and their foster children all the things that they needed. And so they took that income from the fostering and took themselves to China. And it was literally that all these things that were there, she had the capacity to do it, but she hadn't stopped long enough to actually assess that and then put the systems in place to make it happen.
Wow.
And that's what I do with my clients on an ongoing basis, and I love it. And the way that I do that now has changed because of the way that I've changed and who I am as a human. But I get to have those conversations with people on an ongoing basis, and I get to watch people generate those results because my lack of filters has enabled those conversations. So people will actually do the work with me to work out what they want and then implement that in their life.
So effectively, you are using your character journey to now reach back and help others go through the same.
Completely. Most of my conversations revolve around what does your business look like, right? Because I love working with business owners. And it doesn't really matter what size the business is because the business owner, I'm not going to give you advice on HR. I've never led a business where I've had staff in it. I haven't made that choice with my life yet. But if the business owner has got a mental block about what they're doing and why they're doing it and what they can and can't do, etc., that's where my magic sits. That's
Yeah.
my genius space in challenging those things, those thought processes, and doing it in a way where we can get to those. I want everybody to be happy, right? And we can all generate that for ourselves, but so many of us accept less.
Mm.
And I'm like, but why? Why accept less? Certainly, it's not a walk in the park necessarily. Sometimes there's some big things that need to change, and the change is not always a comfortable thing, but it's absolutely doable. And in my experience, when you deliberately create change in your world, the outcome is always worth the effort. Always.
It sounds like really hard won wisdom from you, and I love hearing it. I really do. It's
Thank
very
you.
inspiring to me. Do you know, one of the things that you talked about before in terms of building a business that feels really aligned and makes you really happy. Probably like you, I've spent 10 years of I've invested in a lot of personal development, business development and education. And I've done a lot of what's your mission statement and strategic plan, all the things, learned them, executed them, built 2 million or 7-figure company. I lived it. And then at some point, I started looking around for what it was going to look like to build the next business. And I think from 22 to 42, that age for me, that season I'm still in, has been a continuous peeling back of layers and what do I want next? What do I want next? What's more honest? What's more aligned? What's more truthful? Where am I still performing? Where am I over servicing or giving or putting my attention towards things that aren't really meaningful for me? And the reason that's relevant to business owners is because I think there gets to a point, particularly when you start wanting to build a personal brand or create the next iteration of your business that isn't just servicing other people and helping them with their problems, but servicing them and helping them with problems that feel deeply personal to you.
Yeah.
Suddenly the mission statement of the business and what's the problem we're solving almost becomes less important than who are we solving it for, because who you are solving your problem for, which is the same for me now, is your younger self. That is the person obviously that you are best qualified to serve because of what you've lived through. And it's beautiful to hear you talk like that, because when you are building a personal business that is so aligned with what you are and what's very important and unique to you now, that is the place that you have to start with. It's not how am I going to service people in a way that makes me money, because that's what's come through the door. And
yeah,
it's quite a courageous thing, but it's beautiful to hear you speak like that for that reason, I think, because as again, breadcrumbs, like the more aligned you are and the more you are really focused on solving the thing that is meaningful to you, I think that is just one of the fundamental and key elements to creating something that is properly successful.
yeah, yeah. I actually start back before all those things that you just spoke about are so important, so important. But there's a question before that needs to be answered for the business owner.
Tell me, what is it?
How do you want to live? When you can define how you want to live, what your business looks like will come out of that. Right? The type of conversations that I was talking about before, they feed my soul. I love them, right? When I have clients who come into my space, or doesn't necessarily even have to be clients, it's people who come into my space. Like when we're in Phuket and working through business school and going through and having so many of these types of discussions that was like manna from heaven for me, right? Is that whole, I love being in that space of where we're all growing together and all like discovering bits about each other and bits about ourselves. And even just listen to a conversation can help a penny drop in my mind about what's going on in my world, right? So that whole thing about how do you want to live, that's where, in my perspective, that's where we start. What's your ideal life look like? There's no such thing as a perfect life. It's what's the ideal that you want to head towards. And in every scope of your world, right? I actually take my clients back to the original wellness wheel that a bloke called Hetler, who's known H with an E, not an I, was he back in the 60s. 60s? Yeah, 60s. He designed the original wellness wheel that has your world broken up into 6 equal parts, where you've got spiritual, social, emotional, intellectual, occupational, and physical wellness all being equally important. So I start my clients with, okay, where's your snapshot now? Where do you happen to be today? Because where you are today is just where you are today. There's no judgment. It's just
Yeah.
where you are. And okay, this is where you are now. Where would you rather be? What's your preference? What does that ideal space look like? And then once you can define where we are now and where we want to get to, then we just look at how do we fill that gap? What's that look like? And we don't ever pull this down. This one stays up. We go from here, we go up to there.
I
I
like
need
it.
to get my visuals right because that's important.
That is important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's yeah, and it's conversations and work like that really just that fire me up in ways that I never like. It was like I said, at 42 years old, I saw an image of the ikigai in a Facebook group, and I'm like, huh, I could do that. Holy shit! Because yes, language is so yeah. That's where it all comes from for me with the work that I do. So
That's great.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. Back to you though. I can talk about this forever. Obviously, you and
Which
I,
I love.
we've had so many chats about this sort of stuff, and I'm looking forward to us having more. With the work that you get to do, like with the building personal brands, all the media stuff, all the things that you've done, are planning on doing with the new entity, what is it that you love most about what you get to do?
You know what's funny? So when my last business ended, we had a business partnership breakdown, and my two business partners, yeah, there were lots of things that were challenging about that. The firing of staff was like the worst thing. The worst. It was just heartbreaking. Saying goodbye to all our community, and then losing my business partners who I was in a marriage with. It was just it was really crushing. But the biggest thing for me, the biggest crushing part, I think, was building a coaching business, which was so much about confidence and congruency and consistency and identity, of course, because business is that process. And I felt like a fraud. I didn't feel like I had earned the right afterwards to be able to speak publicly on anything. And I'd spent I was editor of Australia's biggest magazine. I was contributing editor to Australia for 3 years. I was editor at large for Virgin, their ambassador. Like, I had these fantastic jobs and very much in the public eye and always on stages and podcasts. And I built these businesses visibly too. And suddenly it was gone. And my business partners had said, "Oh, you're not that great. You're not that great. We don't want to be in business with you anymore." And so I lost all of the things that bring me joy, my ability to connect with others, to tell stories, to have a voice, to lead by example, to talk and teach on all of the things that make me happiest. And I think I spiraled back into corporate land, and I worked or consulted to, as I said before, with We Are Georgia. I really poured my attention into that, went behind the scenes, working with big corporations on their storytelling strategies and so on. And obviously I really enjoy that work. However, I always felt like I did feel like there was something missing in terms of working with the small business owner who deals with what it looks and feels like to navigate life as the leader and the director of the ship without necessarily a huge support network. And I think the thing that gives me the most joy above anything else is connecting with people who understand or who need, or for whom my assistance can have a palpable impact on their thinking and their life, on their business, on their finances, on the way that they behave day to day. All of those things are so rewarding. And I think that's getting back to what you were saying before about being aligned and being at this age now where you are working with clients on the things that are really meaningful and important to you. Even just the process of being able to articulate, this is what is meaningful to me and this is how I want my life to go. This is what I want to dedicate my energy to. And that, I don't think money is not what motivates me. It's obviously, I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love making it. I love it. I love spending it. I love it. And its impact and meaning are the things that I love. Like, that's what drives me. And the money is the processional, the side effect. And so I think being able to create a business or results that offer the trifecta of all three, money, impact, meaning, that's the golden goose.
Yeah. Kind of like a three-legged stool, isn't it?
Yeah. Without one of the legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. And it's so true. And I love that you like very clearly articulate that you love earning money, you love spending money, you love using money, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people, and I've been guilty of it myself, right? I had so many money blocks sitting there that I was like, oh, I'll do this stuff and I would never charge my worth. And there's still a working out my space in the marketplace is like one of my current things that I'm working on, right? Because I've had this big shift recently. But previously I would almost give away my time for a million different reasons. Most of them came back to my own self-worth. But then you look at it going, okay, money's kind of important because it's up there with oxygen in terms of the quality of life we get to lead, right?
Yeah.
And how many choices we have and how much good we can do, because if we don't have enough coming in, then how can we flow it out again to have a positive impact on the world? There's all this. So I really love that. So the flip side of that is that I would love to know is, what is it of all the things that you do and that you need to do within your business, etc., what is it that you dislike the most?
Anything that sees me caught in the weeds of delivery too much. I just love to create. I'm on the disc profile, I'm high I, high D. So I'm very outcome focused. I love winning. I love sales. I love marketing. I love attracting. But if I get caught too much in the back end, in the details, in the processes, in the delivery, I get very unhappy.
Yeah.
It took me quite a while to learn and appreciate that, because obviously I love people. And so I want to spend time with people and offer as much value and all of those things. But I know to be true for myself that I am happiest when I am front of house. And that's where my genius lies. So building a business around that, a new business, this next business is, that's the strategy. That's what I'm currently in the weeds of right now. And
yeah,
We will see.
Yeah. What a beautiful opportunity, though, to design what your next phase is going to look like. That's because, like, I'm in a similar spot. Like, we're starting a new business where effectively what I was doing within 10,000 Dreams was not particularly functional, and I couldn't see how a way to do it. So I essentially just pushed that to the side for a period of time, and yeah, relaunching now under the new banner. So
Why was that not functional?
I wasn't charging enough money. I was attracting the clients that the clients that I had were lovely people, but they weren't the sort of, it was the conversations that were coming out of it were different to the ones that I would rather have. We got a lot of yeah, when I first start working with my clients, I always talked with them about the fact that it's a partnership and that we need to, like, how do I word this? The partnership is about the two of us working together, and the work that we do feeds both of us on different levels, right? The clients are moving forwards, but also I get to have these conversations that are really invigorating, and like the whole thing about having conversations that challenge people's thinking is, I love those sorts of conversations because it challenges me, even though I'm the one often putting the challenge out to the clients. And so that stuff really feeds me, and and also watching people generate results and then getting to celebrate that with them, and all the stuff that goes with being in a successful coaching relationship. And what I was finding is that one client in particular, that was actually, I stopped working with them quite a period of time before I stopped really doing 10,000 Dream stuff. But I would give them a challenge of something to do each week, and they would come back and they would have done nothing, absolutely nothing of the things that I had. Now, this is someone who's come in, said that they want change. We'd have all these discussions. I'd set them some stuff to work on through the week, and they would just not do the work.
Yeah.
And then at the end of when we stopped working together, they blamed me because they didn't have results. They're not the people I want to work with.
No.
But that's who I was attracting. And so I just paused. I had a bunch of life stuff going on. I put a big focus into our real estate and some other things, tidied up some other stuff in the background. And so now, like, I'm relaunching under this new banner that will then have space for my husband and our kids, who are both adults, to come into that space, into the business eventually, because I would love to be able to work with my husband and our kids more closely than we are right now. And also, I can see how I can scale that really easily compared to what I was doing before. Like, I really just needed a complete reset for myself.
It's funny hearing you say that, because I think in one of my previous businesses, one of the terms that we used was the idea of drops in the bucket. And the idea is that when you want to bring an effect about in the world, typically for somebody to make a decision, they have to go through phases, right? And the first phase is like ideation, and then there's increasing agitation and perturbation until you reach a point where you decide. You are like, I am doing this. It is done. And the whole idea of the term decide coming from the Latin word, which is to cut inside or side. When you are in business, decision making is a key. You have to be able to decide quickly. And the faster you move, the faster you'll bring about results.
Yeah.
And which means every time you make a decision, you're putting another raindrop in a bucket, right?
Yeah.
And the more raindrops or even a single decision, every thought you have, oh, I should do that, I should do that. And at some point, hopefully the bucket gets enough drops that it tips over, and then you make the decision. And if you don't have enough drops in the bucket to be able to make a decision and then act on it, then you just don't have the muscle strength, the willpower, the discipline, the courage that's required to be the person who is going to bring about the results that you want to bring about in your life. And unfortunately, what I know to be true is, although most people are incredible, or everyone's sitting on some kind of idea, most people are just they don't have drops in the bucket. Or they have them in one area of their life, but absolutely not in another.
Yeah.
And anyone can learn to have drops in the bucket. You just have to take the action, which is so corny and cliched, and I wish there was a better way, but there isn't.
Yeah.
But it's for you holding the standard around the boundary of no, this is who I want inside my container. And if you're not willing to take responsibility for your results, then I'm not going to hold your hand. That's big for you.
Yeah, because when I started out, I wanted to help everybody.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But just recently, in a book club that I'm a part of, I've been a part of for off and on for 6 years, we read through Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil. Have you read that book yet?
No.
It's like a precursor to Think and Grow Rich. And it was actually written around about a similar time and then helped like this because there's some stuff in there that's probably seen as a bit controversial. And it was not released by his family for something like 60 years. So anyway, but in that book, they talk about people being drifters, and that it's something like 97% of the population are those people who just don't have enough drops in their bucket to tip it
Yeah.
over and make magic happen.
Just seaweed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because all of these things they're the generalized principles that they're just expressed in different ways. Because even the stuff where you're talking about with the seasons with that Tony Robbins was talking about, Napoleon Hill talks about that in Think and Grow Rich, that people don't necessarily really hit their prime until they're in their 40s. It's exactly what Tony talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. There are always exceptions to the rule, but if you look at populations, yeah, this is what happens. So it's a fascinating journey to learn and to understand, though. As you build the new business, and the new stage for you, what's the dream? What are you working towards?
Yeah. I'm not clear yet. I know what the product is. I know the outcome that I'm offering other people. How that paints a broader, or what, sorry, I should say, I am clear on the outcome. The outcome is easy. I want to build now, this time around, a 7-figure personal brand that is teaching people how to create a 7-figure personal brand. That's easy. I've done that before. And so it's a natural and easy evolution. I think what I'm less clear on is what the value ladder of ascendancy is from a commercial perspective, where those leads are going to come from ongoing. I've definitely got my current community and so on. What the mechanism of delivery is going to look like in another couple of years, given AI is turning the coaching industry absolutely upside down. There are a few sort of things that I'm really just not, that are still question marks. And at the same time, Terri, you can't let those things stop you from taking the action. You just have to go and move towards what it is that you intuitively and instinctively feel good about. At least that's how I do it, backed by a commercial plan.
Yeah.
In terms of my escape route or what the saleable asset is that I'm building yet and how that fits in with my life vision, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe that's what you can help me with.
I'm happy to chat always. And I love that. I love your honesty in that answer because there's so many people that will gloss over that, right? And because for a million different reasons, there's many who are not willing to say, I don't know yet. And I love the fact that you did that. So thank you for that. Because I think it's such an important part of the journey for all of us to be, I guess, open and transparent that there's sometimes in our life where we are dead certain this is happening, whatever. And there's other times where we need to stop and reassess and reevaluate and then edit where we're going. So I love that. As we wrap up, though, what is the key takeaway that you want people to take from this? When they think about you, Georgia Rickard, what do you want people to think of?
From this conversation or about me generally?
Either. You choose. Or both. Is it the both? Is it the same?
I do believe that my current mission is to help empower people to make decisions and create actions that are fully self-expressed. I think most of us are walking around totally terrified of expressing our real opinion, of expressing what we want for ourselves, of taking responsibility for that, of exposing ourselves to the risk of what it is we actually want for ourselves. All of these, it's big and it's scary and we're attached. And there's not a lot of people out there who are really like self-permission led. And I would absolutely say that the seaweed effect is something that I've really battled with my life. And don't get me wrong, I've reached heady heights, but I've also been very influenced and led by whatever opportunities came my way or the people around me and their opinions. And I don't think, in fact, I think it's often the dichotomy and the challenge of being a high achiever, right? You want to please and you want to win and you want to fit into narratives of other people. I'm saying you, but certainly it's true for me. And I know that a lot of us are like that. And so I think being willing to show yourself visibly and make yourself the face of your business and the voice and celebrate your thought leadership and your expertise and monetize it well. That's the impact that I want to have in the world. And that is what I want people to think of when they think of me.
I love that.
Fame and cash. Fame and cash.
Whatever it is that you want. If fame and cash gives you what you want in your life so that you can live the way that you want to live, then that's perfect. That's ideal for you, right? I nearly said the word perfect. I don't like the word perfect anymore. Perfection doesn't exist, but I love that. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much for your time. I've loved our chats. And it's really interesting because when I first met you, you ground my gears a lot. That doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
I love that we've both grown. But thank you, Georgia. I really appreciate your time and your honesty and your just the way that you've shared today has been really beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for facilitating the space that allowed me to share in that way. It's been a lovely chat. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm looking forward to chatting again.
Me too.